So, how do we navigate change? As business owners, change is absolutely inevitable. In fact, we all know the cliche that the only constant in life is change. But how we respond to it provides the answer whether we will expand when the times are difficult or if we will, or if the change will bring us down. So today I want to talk about tools and tips that we can engage in to really create a mindset that's very agile. And by the way, a lot what I do in Unlock Your Success mentorship coaching is to prepare entrepreneurs to be open to constantly shift their perspectives, their concepts, but also allow new ideas to come in. So first, I want to set the stage by asking you, what are your coping mechanisms for change? When you feel like your business needs to be redirected, perhaps in your personal life, some relationships come to end, maybe there's a major upheaval going on, how do you tend to respond? And a lot of times we deal with uncertainty by procrastinating. So all these tasks that we should be doing, Brianna's, I see smiling, so that must be one of her to-go mechanisms. So if that's you, put procrastination in the chat, right? We've all been guilty of it. Perhaps you go into indecision. Suddenly, the smallest decision seems paramount. Like the consequences will be so big that we're agonizing over $27 for some webinar. If that's you, put indecision in the chat. And by the way, I many, many years ago heard it from my coach and mentor that true business owners make fast decisions. They evaluate pros and cons and they commit and they do it on the spot because uh, pulling away and putting it on your task list, something to do later, is just, we don't have time for that in business. So if you ever feel like you're indecisive, put indecision in the chat. Sometimes we simply go into inaction. We're shutting down. Life is too difficult. Economy is bad. So why should I even do that? So we start playing small. We go into apathy. So if inaction is a way to cope, put inaction in the chat. And then often we start clinging to the old paradigms. We start reminiscing, these good old days when gas was only $1.80 per gallon, right? The life in business was so easy then. So we start drawing out the past and resenting the presence. If that's you, put past in the chat for reminiscing on what it was. And then there are simple complaints. I mean, I don't like this. This is not going well. I don't like the way my clients talk to me. I don't like the economy. I don't like politics. I just don't like it all. And that's another coping mechanism that we can unconsciously opt into. So I'm bringing this forward because there may be some aspects of your professional or personal life where you are unconsciously in that mindset of rejecting the change or not adapting to it. And unfortunately, a lot of times when something's coming at us, we tend to be thrown into two possibilities: victimhood or mastery. So it's so easy to play the victim. Like, this is happening to me. Why is this happening to me? What did I do? How do I deserve it? Karma is a B, right? And what that means is we start reacting to situations. We feel like we have no control over what's happening. We feel powerless. Our solar plexus chakra, which is like the stomach area, gets squeezed, and we just feel like we have no way of resolving the situation. And the problem with reaction is that once we gave up the control, why we decided that something is happening to us instead of with us, there's not much we can do about it. Okay, so that's the reaction and the victim mentality, as opposed to stepping into the mastery of responding to the situation and saying, well, what is really happening right now? How is it affecting me? What is this situation trying to teach me? How is it serving me? What wisdom can I extract from it? So this react versus respond is naturally nothing new. But when you are in a grip of emotion, when the emotion's running through you, that's kind of hard time to be pondering about the meaning of life and your responses, because we tend to fall prey to our own emotions. So I believe that adaptability to change has to start with self-awareness and proper emotional management. So how do we manage emotions? That's a big question, right? Well, I developed this system around 15 years ago, and the first step in emotion is to understand that you are not the emotion that you feel. When you say, I am angry, I am frustrated, I am overwhelmed, I am exhausted, you're using I am statements. And what that means is, what you're really saying is, I am anger, I am frustration, I am overwhelm, I am exhaustion. But you're not the anger that you feel. It's just an emotion that's passing through you, energy and emotion, right? Emotions have been designed as a communication tool from your brain to your own consciousness to tell you that you're processing the data that the brain is receiving. And based on your judgments, expectations, observations, you have set in a response. So the moment you realize that you're not the emotion that you feel, now you can detach from it. And it's step number 2. So first, observe that something's happening, and number 2, detach. And to detach, you have to say, I am feeling angry. I am sensing overwhelmed. What that does is now extracts you from the emotion itself. Because to feel and observe something feels external to you, right? Once you decide to put the distance between yourself and the emotion, you can then fully let it go. And that is the affirmation statement, which is the step number 3, where you declare, I let it go. What's also very important when you process your emotions is to have compassion for yourself, because what you resist persists. So if you're angry and you start judging yourself for the anger that you feel, now you're dealing with original anger, and you're dealing with the anger for being angry. That's an anger squared. Could you be so compassionate towards yourself that you will allow the emotion to pass through without judgment? Because the fastest way to diffuse something is to stop stopping it, if that makes sense. That's came out kind of fun. So if you are feeling very angry, just say, I'm feeling super angry, super angry right now. Oh my goodness, I'm feeling so angry right now. Yeah. Okay, I think I want to let it go now. Right? Because you give yourself permission. Even saying the word, I will let it go, opens the door. So emotional management, to me, is paramount for anything we do in life and business. But observation of these emotions and having a compassion towards yourself to have these sensations and feelings is foundational, because judgment carries a lot of negative emotions. So now you're dealing with whatever your primary emotion is, and then you're judging yourself. So now you've got shame, guilt, maybe sadness, that you showed up in a certain way because you were angry. Maybe you screamed at somebody, or maybe you used the negative words. So to bring it down, anytime we want to respond to a change, first express the emotion by saying, I'm sensing, I'm perceiving myself, I'm feeling myself, very whatever it is. And then it is okay. Like, affirm it to yourself in your mind. It is okay to be angry right now because that's what I'm feeling. But I'm also very much interested in letting it go. So I'm going to give myself permission to release that. All right. Now, we have to also understand what happens when we are overwhelmed because we feel like a rug is being pulled from underneath us. And I'm going to give you a trick that is super easy and works every single time like magic. It must be magic, although the brain science proves that it's really true. So first, let's talk about your brain. When a change comes into your life, that means that established systems of showing up in life, of responding to life, are being challenged or questioned. And our brain loves to work on efficiency. In fact, if you think about it, a lot of times when you go to the grocery store, you go on automatic. You start picking the usual items and you don't even think about this twice. It's because the brain tends to send the chemicals needed to operate at optimum to establish neurological pathways. It's working on efficiency. So change throws this efficiency out the door. And often the part of your brain that gets activated is the limbic system and the famous amygdala. How many of you have heard about amygdala hijack? Now, we're not talking about carjacking. Yes. So what happens, it's this little pesky thing in your brain that flares up and evolutionarily was designed for you to be alive. Because if you've got some big animal coming at you and you step out of the cave and you're about to be eaten for breakfast, then there's not a lot of time to be thinking, well, what a pretty animal. I wonder, well, look at those paws. Oh, look at those nice teeth, right? By now you've been a very yummy breakfast. So the part of your executive center of your brain kind of shuts down, and all that attention goes to the response. And that's where amygdala creates a tunnel vision. That's literally coming from your brain. It's the part of your brain that narrows your focus to be completely zoned in on what you perceive as danger. And there's a problem there, because that's when we become a little bit more back to the cave times. We're just not able to logically think through situations. We are literally hijacked. So what can we do to reopen the part of our brain that actually can make logical decisions? So here comes tool number 2 today. And it's called Hakalau. It actually comes from the native tribes in Hawaii. It's a very shamanic tool, very native tribal tool, but brain science proved it really works, because what it does is activates your peripheral vision. And brain scientists studying Hakalau realized that when we activate the sensory input on the sides of our brain, then we actually change brainwave. We go from beta, which is the busy and the one that is responding to danger, and activate alpha waves, which allow you to think logically again. So here's how we do it. I want you all to play with me. Stick out your hands right in front of you. Everybody has two. And now start wiggling your fingers. Now, this is another evolutionary trend. We're designed to spot movement because that's how you protect yourself from danger. If you're in cave times looking at the beautiful grass and suddenly some of it is moving faster, you immediately go into survival, right? You need to, it's safety. So now what's going to happen is as you're using your fingers to move, your brain has to focus on movement. Trust me, even if you're thinking, I am about to kill my VA, you can't kill her in this moment because your fingers are moving, all right? So now that they are moving, stretch them right in front of you fully. And we're going to go while moving your hands, we're going to start moving to the side. Now, here's the trick. The left eye follows the left hand, right eye follows the right hand. What that means is you have to relax your gaze and you're literally focusing on the both left and right side of your hands. And because they are wiggling, I'm going to demonstrate close, but you want to put it all full arm's length. Because they are close and they are because they're moving, your brain is focused on movement. Now, don't stop breathing. I see some of you are like, no, we're breathing gently. And what we're going to do right now is put everyone in an alpha state. All right. And if you do it for a little bit longer, what you'll notice is you'll be a little bit sleepy. Life suddenly is a little bit easier. All right. Now extend it a little bit more, but beyond 180 line. This, by the way, is amazing exercise. We have more than a 180-degree vision. You start activating your intuitive vision, your third eye vision. All right. So very cool tool. And here's the beauty of this hakalau or peripheral vision. You can use it before sales calls. If you're a speaker, you're about to get on a podcast or get on a stage, that's where you pull out the hakalau right before you get on it. Because brain science proves that once you're in a hakalau, once you're in a peripheral vision, you cannot hold on to a negative thought. How cool is that? All right. So hakalau the heck out of the change. I'm coining the new proverbs. So that's one of the tools that I use extensively and my clients use in situations of stress to immediately center yourself. Another tool that's extremely helpful, but I'm certain you've been exposed to, is to use breathing through nostrils. Now, you may know it from yogis. And again, you might think, well, these yogis, they just have this woo-woo metaphysical thing around them. But actually, brain scientists have proven that when you breathe through one nostril and release through other, or just do one nostril in and out, it generates more nitric oxide in your brain. So it actually works on activating the calmness within you so you can think more expansively and more logically. So what we're going to practice now is inhaling through the left nostril to make it your own. So do a little bit longer inhale. And then when you go to the top, pause for 1 minute and then exhale on the other side, pause. All right. So go ahead. Inhale through the left, go to the top, stop. Exhale, deeply, deeply, deeply pause. Inhale. More. Stop. Exhale. Now do it in your own rhythm, but this time what I'm going to do is to invite you to inhale more, to really stretch your lungs where you're like, oh, this is uncomfortable, because we rarely actually get enough oxygen to our brain. And when you exhale, I want you to, when you think you don't have any air, squeeze yourself again and exhale even more. Because there is a part of your air that never leaves. It just sits there. So we actually want to move that a little bit. All right, how's everybody doing? I'm about to put you all to sleep. And let's see if we can get Sarah in. She's waiting. All right. Awesome. Okay. So what the breathing does, and by the way, you can do it to where you breathe just through one back and forth, or in through one, out through the other. Another thing that is scientific fact, when you breathe in and stop, most people think like, oh, I am out of oxygen. How can this possibly help me? Well, they've proven that when you pause, the brain actually optimizes oxygen by extracting more out of what's in your lungs. So by pausing on the inhale and on an exhale, you're gonna oxygenate your brain faster. All right. Another tool that I highly recommend is mindfulness. I'm going to give a spin on it. That's mine. When you've got a crisis in life or business, the head tends to be spinning into a future that has not happened yet. In fact, if you watch the movie After Earth with Will Smith and his son, it's a brilliant movie on a difference between true danger and perceived fear. So I always recommend it to all of my clients. Beautiful movie, and really will change your perspective on what fear is. And there's a quote in that movie where when Will Smith tells his son, danger is clear and present, but fear is something that has not happened or may not even happen. So when you start distinguishing fear from danger, that's when you can adapt to what life is throwing at you with more ease. And my mindfulness, the way I work with it, it's simply realizing that in this moment, there is no crisis. So let's say you get an email that 3 of your clients just withdrew from your program, or 5 of your clients ask for a refund for a product that you sold. That is a crisis. How are you going to respond to that, right? You need to reevaluate whether the product or service is correct. Maybe you need to change its format. This can create a lot of overwhelm and anxiety. So the first response that I encourage you to step into is to simply ask, in this moment, right now, where you are you safe? And the answer 100% of time will be yes. The only time it will be no is if there is a tornado coming and there are sirens going and you know you need to evacuate. That's a real danger. That's when you can truly say, no, I am not safe. But pretty much any time other than that, unless you are in the ocean and there is a storm, or you've decided to cross a highway randomly, yes, that's a real danger. But majority of your business situations are not. And yet your amygdala evolutionarily recognizes rejection, any perception of a failure the same way it perceived a tiger coming at you when you left the safety of your cave. So by asking yourself a question, am I safe in this moment? You put a distance between the projection of what you think may or may not happen that causes this turbulation, and now you're back into dealing with the uncertainty of what's happening. Because if you are safe, then you're also safe and able to create different outcomes, to come up with the solution. All right. Is that helpful? Let's see. Put a yes in the chat if anything resonates. In fact, before I keep going, because I'm going to be throwing all kinds of tools, let's regroup for a moment. Who would like to unmute and tell me what resonates so far? What seems to be helpful?
The comment you just made about fear and that hasn't happened or may never happen. And if we're not running into a tornado or a hurricane, our business is not that. We have to put it into perspective, I guess.
Wonderful. And there's another tool for that I can offer. And this is how I work with my consciousness. So everything I teach is always something that I was the guinea pig for. I work on myself. If it works, I pass it to my clients. So often in business, overwhelm is part of it. If you're looking at your task list and it's 78 items, I mean, right away, it ain't gonna happen, right? So how do you deal with it? Well, in my meditation, I've been literally taken, we can say, out of my body and into 30,000 feet above the ground. And what do you see underneath? You see life. You see a beautiful sunny day. You see that the wind is blowing, that there are cars on the street, there are people walking with their pets, others are at work, somebody, is gardening. And when you give yourself permission to extract yourself from the situation that you are in and realize that you are part of this beautiful universe of consciousness where life is happening at every moment, where right now as you sit in your worry and anxiety, there is some ant that's moving around just trying to bring a piece of wood to its colony. It gives you a perspective on what really matters. Is this email that I've just received from my client really the end of the world? If the program flopped and nobody subscribed, is it really that important? Or is it an opportunity to readjust, recalibrate, and do something different? So having this perspective of 30,000 feet, whatever it is for you, for me, it's very helpful to keep reminding myself that life is busting at all times. And what I perceive is this critical moment, it's really not for the rest of the world. I'm just one of the wheels in that engine of life, and then I can relax because the life will go on with that email or without it, with the client or without it. The next the next perspective that I would like to invite you to engage in when dealing with change is easing on expectations, judgments, concepts, perspectives. If you think about the negative emotions that we experience majority of the time, they all stem to one word. Does anyone know what that might be? What is the emotion that drives all of the negative emotions? Let's just throw some for fun or put it in a chat. The core
Fear.
emotion.
Fear.
Yeah, but where does fear come from? What causes fear?
Mm.
Where does anxiety come from? What causes anxiety?
So what I've been taught is that it's a belief system of feeling either incompetent or unloved. So it's a belief that I am either essentially incompetent or I am essentially unlovable. And that belief can create fear and anxiety and all that. But it's sort of a core belief that you may not even recognize you have, which is a self-belief about either being essentially incompetent or essentially unlovable.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. So where does unlovable come from? You see, at the core of all of these emotions, there's judgment.
I got you.
If there was no judgment, there would be no way to compare. If there was no judgment, there would be nothing to fear. For example, a statement, there's a puppy coming your way, it's just a neutral statement. If you were bitten before, you will produce, based on your judgment of what happened before, you will produce fear. If you only have positive experiences with dogs, then using your judgment, you will conclude that this is a pleasurable situation and you will have feelings of excitement. So at the core of all of our responses, there is judgment and expectations that come from it. So when we are so critical towards others, but mostly to ourselves, is because we created the whole paradigm of expectations of who we should be, what we should accomplish, how we should be showing up, and all these shoulds. The moment we suspend judgment, we're back in neutrality. And then they're just facts. So everything is the matter of perspective. And perspective is tied to judgment. Change your judgments, your expectations will change. By the way, this is especially beneficial in relationships, whether personal or professional. Because when we interact with others, we have so many expectations we don't even know. And if somebody doesn't meet that expectation, we're straight into judgment. So by simply saying whatever judgments I have placed on that person and myself, I now cancel and clear, destroy and remove from the time I created them to the time I'm destroying them now. You can use this kind of affirmation statement, which by the way works energetically on clearing that attachment. If you use that, it will help you go back into neutrality. Because again, it opens your mind to ask yourself the questions, what kind of expectations did I place on this situation? And change is painful because we had expectations towards the old ways. It was the way it was. We were used to it. We knew what to expect. We knew what was right. We knew what was wrong. We knew what we liked. We knew what we didn't. Suddenly, it's taken from us. And now we'll have to create new judgments and expectations and concepts on how we're going to be responding to that. So going into neutrality, it takes practice. Because as human beings, boy, we do like to have expectations. We do, for everything, from the food you eat to how you dress to the car you drive to how they speak on TV on how the sun should be shining and how the rain should be raining. But when you start practicing it and you catch yourself in the moment of stress or overwhelm, you may use that question, what kind of expectations have I placed on this situation? Because it's those expectations and the judgment of not being met that is putting us in that spin of negative emotions. Once you know that you've got an expectation, you can say, well, would I be willing to let go of that and simply see what is? And, at the core of our relationship with self and relationship with others is this idea, could we suspend the shoulds that we give to others and to ourselves and simply show up and see what is? It takes discipline, but once we start doing it regularly, then as soon as you're in judgment, you'll be like, okay, I'm in judgment. Yeah, I don't like it. This person behaved completely not according to my standard. And then you can ask, so am I projecting my standard on somebody else? Because if I'm projecting it, that person cannot meet my expectations. I'm judging that person based on my definitions. And who am I to place my operating system on somebody else? And it doesn't mean that we placate others, that we allow them to misbehave, but It allows us to step back from that emotional entanglement and to go more into, well, how is this situation serving me? Is it to my highest good to continue, or should I step out of that situation? All right, so let's talk more. Gratitude is completely underrated. Even though we hear about it in journals, in metaphysical events, in yogi communities, pretty much everywhere. But why does it work? I had a client who once asked me, I don't like what's going on in my business. I need something different. So I'm not going to be grateful for all these bad results. How can it supposedly helping me to move forward? Well, let's talk energy. We attract what we vibrate out. In other words, we attract what we put out. And when you focus on what you do not want, guess what you get? More of the same. Yeah. So when you say, well, you know what? This webinar is a flop. I didn't get any clients. Nobody came. They don't like it. They don't like me. I don't like me. So what I'm getting more is more webinars with no shows, right? But let's say you did get 2 people and you say, universe, the most fabulous 2 people showed up to my webinar. Boy, I'm so grateful. They decided to co-create this with me. They came in to show me what works, what doesn't. I was able to interact. I was able to get some information from them, even testimonials. Universe, I love these 2 people that decided to be part of my experience. What do you think you're magnetically attracting more of now? Another 2, another 4, another 6. So being grateful for where you are today does not mean, universe, I'm just want to be mediocre. You'll just keep me exactly where I am because I'm so happy and thankful for what I have. No, it means quite the opposite. It means I am so enjoying what I have that I open myself to magnify it more. In fact, I'm becoming such a magnetic person that what I enjoy, what I appreciate, what I'm grateful for comes back to me multifold. So gratitude is something that I highly recommend for dealing with change and really understanding that there's nothing ever happening to you. Everything is happening with you. In fact, it is your co-creation. So the more you appreciate what's happening, the less resistance you're in. So let's talk about resistance, right? When we started talking about how you cope with stress, procrastination, indecision, shutting down, apathy, all of that is your resistance, internal resistance. And the problem with resistance is, imagine if you just got yourself Porsche, because you've got big dreams and you want that fast car and you want to go far. But you strapped to it 10 trailers, each one representing every possible failure, every discomfort about changing environment and the fact that you need to show up differently. How fast do you think that Porsche is going to go now? Because you might be taken over by a Ford Focus that is not dragging anything behind. So resistance is something that we need to pay attention to, because the less of it we resist, the faster we move forward. And how we drop resistance? By acceptance. To change the situation that you're in, you first have to accept that it is happening without judgment. So just state what is happening to your mind. I'm 10,000 short on my cash flow this month, or my business development person just quit, or my sponsor pulled out of the program. Just state what it is, accept that this is a fact. Ask yourself again, am I still safe? Yes, you are. We've already established that. So then you can ask, what do I need to do next? How can I respond to it? What different path can I take to mitigate this situation? All right, and now I want to finish with the very last thing, and this is something that I channeled recently for myself, for my community, through intuitive insights, and that is to remind us that we always have a third option. We tend to live in a world of duality, yin and yang, female, masculine, dark, light, good, bad. And the problem with that is that when a major shift in your life occurs, you tend to use the old paradigm of thinking to resolve it. But if you're stepping into a new version of yourself, the new era of your development and the growth and expansion, then your old operating system cannot solve this problem. Make sense? So what do? We open ourselves to intuitive insight coming from your higher self, from your higher wisdom, to present you with what I call a third door, a third option. And in this moment, you don't need to know what that option is. In fact, it's better that you don't. But what you ask is that your inner wisdom, that your divine consciousness that resides within you will present you with an option that not only serves your highest good, but the highest good of all involved. And yes, that means that you sometimes, actually always, pray for your enemies too. Because what happens is that the universe operates on benevolence. And when we're in the old paradigm of thinking, then they are wrong and I am right. And why is this life doing to me? Why is this happening? We're in judgment. And that puts us back on that pendulum of duality. But what if in a quantum realm that we live in of limitless possibilities, there's another option that you in this moment are not privy to, that you don't see it yet because you're emotionally attached to what was. But by opening the door, pulling the curtains out, you're saying to the universe, what if there's another way? What if you present me through intuition, through meditation, maybe through my dreams, with a completely brand new option? And that option will be so amazing that it will serve my highest good of all involved, and it will be the most optimal and benevolent outcome. And then you let go. And you are in this beautiful state of not only acceptance, but eager awaiting of what can be, what may be presented to you. And that's when magic starts to happen. So with that, let's open it for comments. What is resonating? What is it bringing up to your surface? And what can I help you break through? Because sometimes when we have these situations of discomfort and change, unconsciously we may be spinning the wheels, the same emotions are running the program, and the program starts running us. So it helps when somebody can come and help you see what may be running through your mind and how you may be unconsciously limiting yourself.